Hi there, and welcome to Living in Lansing, Michigan, your resource for everything you need to know about buying a home, selling a home, or living in the greater Lansing area. I'm your host, Brooks Warner, local real estate agent with Mid-Home Team at Keller Williams Realty. Today, I have a special guest for you, but before we get started, take a minute, like, subscribe, turn on notifications for this video. Also, if you know anyone who's thinking about buying a home in the greater Lansing area, this is going to be a great video for them. So maybe share it with them so they can take a look. Also, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me, brooks@midhometeam.com. I answer questions for people every day about buying a home and selling a home in the greater Lansing area. Today, my guest is going to be Kim Kruger with Translation Title, and she's going to be explaining to us everything that buyers and sellers need to know about what a title company is, what title insurance is, and what all that means. So hold on just a second while we get started. All right, I'm here with a good friend, Kim Kruger. She's been in title for I don't even know how long, but Kim, why don't you take a second, introduce yourself, tell all of our watchers what you do, and then we'll get into what title insurance is.
Well, hi everyone, I'm Kim Kruger. I'm with Translation Title. I've been working with Brooks here for quite a number of years. I started in the title business about 28 years ago. I have some lending background, so this has kind of been my passion for a very long time, and this is what I do for a living, and happy to share some information with you all.
Well, we appreciate you coming in. I've been recording a little mini series to help buyers and sellers understand how the real estate process works in Michigan specifically, and even more specifically the greater Lansing area.
Sure.
So let's start with, what is title insurance?
What is title insurance? Well, everybody knows they have to have it, but they're not exactly sure what it is. Title insurance is a policy that does protect your rights for this large investment that you're going to be making. There are quite a few things that we do when it comes to doing the search for the title policy itself. But essentially what it is protection and knowing that the property that you're purchasing is free of any liens and encumbrances, and that you will truly be the owner once you sign those papers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's see, what do we want to talk about next? How about the search? What do you guys look for? What's the background that you look for doing the title search before you issue the title insurance policy?
Sure. Well, what we're looking for is any issues that may be attached to the property. It could be any number of things. A prior owner that maybe somehow got lost in the chain. It could be potentially if there was a property split and maybe the legal description didn't get transferred properly. There are so many things that can come up. So many times it's just really simple and it's pretty clear cut. But the one time we find one or two of those issues, we want to address it before we transfer the property. So this is why it's really important that we get this done in advance of somebody purchasing a home.
All right, Kim, so is there just one title insurance policy, or is there options there? Explain that to us.
There are options. There are two different types of policies that we primarily work with here when it comes to a home purchase. The first one is the owner's policy. Michigan state statute requires that a seller has to prove their ownership interest in the property, and we do so by providing an owner's policy.
Okay.
Typically that is something that the seller provides, and there again, that is something that will go with the buyer, and it will stay with that buyer until they transfer the property.
Okay.
The second policy is a lender's policy of title insurance. That protects the lender. So if somebody is taking out a mortgage for the new home that they're buying, that product will protect the lender and their investment, as they're the ones that are doing the lending. So that protects their mortgage.
Gotcha. So one policy protects the new buyer,
Correct.
the new owner that just bought it, and the other one, if they're getting a loan, protects the lender.
Correct.
But they have basically the same coverages?
Pretty much the same coverages, exactly. So it is, like I said, it's typically, like I said, the seller will provide that owner's policy saying, hey, I'm going to deliver this property to you free and clear, and here's my title work, my owner's policy, and I'm guaranteeing that to you.
Okay.
Also by way of the warranty deed, but nonetheless, that's what that policy is doing for the buyer.
Okay. And then, so in addition to there being owner's policy and lender's policy, there's also different different levels of coverage you can get from the title company, correct?
Correct. There are about 2 or 3 that we see here in our area that we work with in on the residential side.
Okay.
There's an expanded coverage policy. Some of the underwriters have branded that. I think First American calls it an Eagle policy, and some of the others call it an extended or expanded. Our purchase agreement allows you to select one of those three products. That particular product provides a little bit more coverage in the case where there's some standard things that an owner's policy covers. This one covers a few additional items. Most folks just work with a standard policy,
Okay.
which is what we issue the majority of the time. And that provides most of the basic coverages that anybody would need when purchasing a home. The only other product that we don't write on here a lot in our area, but we do see it on other sides of the state. So if you are doing some home buying or selling in the east side or the west side of the state, you may see a policy with or without standard exceptions. With those types of policies, sometimes there's some additional requirements such as a survey, which is why we typically don't see those in our area because we don't do a lot of surveys any longer. So there are those three options there.
Okay.
There are other things as well. Some folks come to us and just want a basic title search maybe before they get ready to put their house on the market. That is something that we can do for them also. Maybe it's somebody that's deceased and they're just not sure, what else is on that property. And I'll tell you what we can do in a case like that. We can do that search. We can provide it to that potential seller. And if they do decide that they're going to sell the property and they do have to purchase an owner's policy, we'll give them credit for that.
Okay.
So that they're not having to pay double for something that we're doing for them.
Nice. What's the cost of a title insurance policy? And does it vary from one title company to the next? Because I don't even know how many we have here in the Greater Lansing area.
That is such a great question. I will tell you, first of all, we are a rate filed state, meaning that Michigan requires all of the major underwriters to file their rates with the state of Michigan, meaning we can't do any discounting. We have to charge exactly what the rate is that's filed at the state. And I will tell you, most of them are within pennies, if not exactly the same.
Okay.
There are a few title companies that may offer a few different nuances that the other one doesn't, but for the most part, in order for them to stay competitive, they do price them fairly uniformly. In regards to what it costs a seller that might be providing that policy, it is a one-time charge. It's not like other insurance where you have to pay monthly. You pay this fee. It's about 0.5% of whatever the actual sale price is on the property. So relatively inexpensive in the big scheme of what it costs to buy and sell a home these days. And like I said, it is a one-time fee. It will carry that policy through until that buyer maybe gets ready to sell that property again.
Okay. So on average, about 0.5%.
Correct.
Pretty uniform price across all the different title companies because
Yes.
the state kind of mandates it that way.
Correct.
And the coverage is the same
Coverage is the same.
right? Because it's all part of the
Yes.
state mandate, right?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Next question, Kim. Can you give us an example of a time that someone bought a property and for some reason they needed to make an insurance claim on this title policy they had and how that worked and what the resolution was?
Sure. Fortunately, it doesn't happen very often, but on occasion it does. Most of the research is done at the public records, and sometimes not always the public records are 100% accurate. I think they do a phenomenal job of card filing and taking care of these things once they go of record, but there are things that can happen. A couple of examples might be a legal description error that we have to do because maybe I just had one actually just this week where there was a 2-foot strip of land that was to belong with the property. We were given the legal description by the home seller, which was accurate, but it negated that 2 feet of land. And we went back and back and back in the records. It came back to us that it was something that was transferred over from the state of Michigan. And the folks that lived there had been paying taxes on it for quite some time. They didn't realize that they had been paying taxes on it. But in order to take care of this problem and not have to pay out a claim, we did insure over that and covered it because of the length of time that had been out there of record. That's not something that we can always do. There are other things that can come up with maybe a contractor that hasn't been paid. You know, it's not uncommon for folks to maybe paint and put in new carpet when they're getting ready to sell a home. They hire a contractor. The contractor, I've had one recently where the contractor found out that the people were closing. They were a little bit upset because they hadn't been paid. Well, the homeowner had hired the painter to come in and do the painting. They didn't finish the job. They unfortunately had to call somebody else to come in and complete the job. They were getting so close to their closing date. The first company went and filed a lien literally the day of our closing.
Oh no.
So, but we were able to get that one resolved as well. These kinds of things are going to happen. They're not going to happen that often. Hopefully we're not, finding things after the fact. The whole reason that we want to do all this research in advance, provide you with that title commitment, let you know what we've discovered and what we're going to need to clear up prior to closing is so we don't have these things happen. Fortunately, we are an independent agent that works with several title companies. We've got great support by our underwriters, and they will support us if in fact that we do have a claim. So rest assured we'll always be taken care of there.
You brought up property taxes in your last statement, and while this doesn't directly align with title insurance, you guys handle property tax proration for closings.
Correct.
Which is a question that we get all the time.
Yes.
So maybe we'll do a quick little pause on title insurance and talk about property
Sure.
taxes
Sure.
because you are an expert on how that works. So let's talk property tax proration real quick.
Well, property tax proration, again, much like we were talking about how things differ from one side of the state to the other, each municipality decides how they're going to pay their taxes. Sometimes they're paid in advance and sometimes they're paid in arrears. As we know.
So for anyone who doesn't know, what's the difference between advance and arrears? Let's start with that.
So taxes are paid on typically we call it a calendar year here in our area, I will say.
Yeah.
I would like to say the state of Michigan, but I'll find out there's a municipality that maybe doesn't do it that way. So typically, two bills are issued, a summer bill and a winter bill. And as most of you know, some of those bills are a little bit heavier at one time of the year than the other. And again, I can't speak to each municipality as to how that happens, but nonetheless, we're looking at June 1st and December 1st. So we got to make sure that those taxes are paid because we certainly don't want those to be a lien on the property after the fact either. So we will look into those. We will prorate the taxes according to how that contract is written and according to the advanced or the arrears state that we may be in depending on that municipality. Again, what we do is typically the easiest way to describe it is the homeowner pays up until the day that they close and transfer those keys, and the new buyer will take over after that. Now, if that tax bill comes due or is close to coming due at the time of closing, we're going to maybe potentially, if there's a lender involved and there's a mortgage, we may be collecting a little bit over because we haven't been able to see that tax bill. It hasn't come out yet. It's maybe 2 weeks away from that June 1st tax bill coming out. So we may want to make sure that's covered. As we all know, taxes don't usually go down, they usually go up.
Yeah.
So we want to be prepared as best we can. We absolutely want to make sure those taxes are paid and are current when we transfer that property to the new home buyer. So it's really important that we settle up as fairly and as quickly as we can according to when those taxes are due.
Okay. All right, Kim. Well, let's talk about who gets to pick the title company and who the title insurance is through in the state of Michigan. How's that work?
Well, honestly, It can go both ways. Obviously, we talked about the seller pays that owner's policy that they're going to provide to the buyer. So the seller is entitled to picking the title company that they want to work with, since they're going to be paying for that owner's policy.
Okay.
Now you've got a buyer who also is the one that's bringing the financing to the table. So they also have a choice as to where they want to close their loan. So typically what we're seeing pretty much across the state of Michigan is the seller's going to decide where they want to close their side. The buyer's going to decide where they want to close their side. We love it when they close together, but we know that the reality is sometimes there are split closings now, but we certainly can coordinate those and make that happen.
So I think what I'm hearing is whoever's paying for it gets to pick, essentially,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
If the seller has to pay for it,
Correct.
the seller gets to pick. If the buyer is paying for it as part of their loan closing
Correct.
costs, they get to pick that portion. And one real estate transaction actually has both and can be
Yes.
two separate title companies.
Absolutely. We have a wonderful relationship with most of the title companies here in our area, so that's not a problem. Obviously, if it's a cash transaction and we don't have a buyer that's paying, then they will typically allow the seller to make that choice, is typically what we see here.
Well, thank you so much, Kim. That kind of wraps up what we were going to talk about today as far as what is title insurance. Stay tuned for part 2 of this. We're going to talk about the closing process in a separate video, so keep your eyes open for that. Again, I am Brooks with Living in Lansing, Michigan. Feel free to email me any questions that you might have. Email address is brooks@mittenhometeam.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can see our future videos. And if you have any title questions specifically, you can give them to me and I will ask him and get you guys an answer. All right, thank you so much for watching.